A very good morning to one and all. So today we have Mr. Neeraj Karamchandani. So he is a senior team physiotherapist affiliated with Vidarbha Cricket Association, Nagpur. So he is our proud alumnus of MPT 2011 batch. And before joining Vidarbha Cricket Association in 2016, so he was associated with Sumandip Vidyapith, Baroda, as assistant professor, as well as with RK University, Rajkot. So, and he was also involved in training American football team in the year 2015. And presently, his involvement is with the cricketers, and he has been successful. And he's, please mute yourself. Please mute yourself. And he has been successful in seeing the Ranji team the team winning the Ranji Trophy for the 2 consecutive years in 2017-18 and 2018-19. So as we all know, so we have been locked down because of this COVID, and to make a meaningful and for the alumnus. So to this effort, we are organizing a series of webinar on various topics identified by the alumni itself in their area of interest and their expertise. And we had this palliative care delivered by Mr. Giridhar Ravi from Scotland, and respiratory care from Dr. Kalyan from University of Sharjah in the last 2 days. Today we are having Mr. Neeraj Karamchandani. So welcome you, Mr. Neeraj, for this webinar series, and thank you for accepting our invitation.
Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah, just a quick instruction to the participants.
Yeah.
So for the information of all participants, this video is being recorded. And I request all the participants to disable the video and mute yourself so that the bandwidth will be enabled for the session, and there will not to avoid background noises so that the speaker will be able to deliver the session smoothly. Please disable your audio as well as you can post your questions in the chat box, and the questions will be taken up at the end of the session. And you can avoid taking snapshots, because there will be some questions posed by the participants which will be hidden because of numerous snapshots. We will be sharing the presentation material later. Once the session ends, we will be posting it in the conversation, so you can have a copy of that. So please avoid taking snapshots and just post your questions only. So now I request Mr. Neeraj to take over.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for introducing me, and thank you, Department of Physiotherapy, for giving me a chance to interact with all the team PGs of Manipal as well as ortho PGs of Manipal, along with that the other clinical therapists. Now we already know in the screen, we are going to see how we are going to assess the athletes. Okay, so I will just share my slides to start with, and then we can proceed with other details. So is my screen visible?
No, not. Can I request Erika not to display the video or audio?
So is it visible, my screen?
Yeah, it's about to come. Yes, you can minimize the window. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So we already know the, yes, sir.
Yeah, please proceed.
Okay, thank you, sir. So we already know the objectives. I will just briefly discuss what we are going to discuss today. With these screening and assessment that we are going to discuss, we will be able to understand the body of an athlete, and we will see some objective measures for assessing a player. Along with that, we will, these tests will help you to identify modifiable risk factors in a fit athlete. And then at last, if you will compile all these things, we will get a preliminaries of injury prevention program. Now, whatever is mentioned in the slides, whatever details are present, these all are evidence based. Now, what I am going to do, we are using this for last 3 to 4 years, all these screening tests. I'm going to give my clinical experience along with this evidence based test to just let you know what all things we do in fit athletes to improve their performance and to prevent them from injury. So there are a few hypothetical situations I would like to discuss with you these. First, now these situations will come when you're working with some professional team as a team physiotherapist. So the first situation, if you will see, when coach will ask a physiotherapist, a team physiotherapist, like, doc, can you tell what's happening with that player? Why does he frequently get injured? Now, in second scenario, if you will see, a player can ask a team physiotherapist, sir, I feel my knees are heavy. I cannot bend and feel as fast as I want. Why is this happening? Now, in the third scenario, you can see you will end up in some clinical situation where a player had an ankle sprain. He was on rehabilitation for a few weeks for the same. Now he is pain-free clinically. You assess his balance, he is completely all right. You assess his range of motion, it is completely all right. You assess the strength, is completely all right. So do you think by assessing this much, should he be go back and play the football match? Now the answer to all these situations will lie in a detailed musculoskeletal screening of a fit athlete. Even when the players get completely fit, when they are completely pain, there are many findings that we can, which will help them to improve their performance as well as to prevent them from further injuries. So this is the main sequence that we use to assess an athlete. Initially, when a new athlete join any team or when you are starting a pre-season camp, what we start is we start with lab reports, required lab reports to assess an athlete. Okay, so some blood reports that we usually go are complete blood count, where hemoglobin count is very important in cases of athletes. We also go for lipid profile. We also go for vitamin D3 and vitamin B12 level. So these are some blood reports that we require as a prerequisite to assess an athlete. Now these medical reports will become selective depending on the player's injury history also. For example, if player had a repeated shin pain or if he had a groin pain, you must check their vitamin D3 level first, because those who are having D3 level less, their calcium absorption in the bone will be affected. And because of that, they have more injuries related to the tendon bone attachment. So if a player is getting injured for a groin pain, overuse groin injuries, or if they have a overuse shin pain or patellar tendinopathy, in that case, we send them to vitamin D3 test. And along with that, we also assess vitamin B12 test. Now, vitamin B12 is, again, we have seen that is very important in terms of recovery. Now, if a player is complaining of prolonged soreness, when a player played a match or if he did some training sessions, after that, if he feels soreness for a longer time, or if he feels if he's getting tired a lot, if he's not able to push as much as he can, so we need to go for vitamin B12 test, because vitamin B12 level usually remains low in those who have a vegetarian diet. So these are some important lab tests that we go, and if some abnormality is detected, we take a physician's consultation on that, and they start the supplementation process. And then athletes come to the musculoskeletal screening, where the role of team physiotherapist is very important. And this is one of the cornerstone assessment of any athlete. If a fit athlete is joining a team, or if there are some athletes who are there with you in a pre-season camp when you're working with some association or with some academy. This is something which is a prerequisite to do for every athlete, whoever is joining. Now, the importance of musculoskeletal screening is such that even coaches won't allow a player to enter in any training session if they haven't received a musculoskeletal screening report of that player from team physiotherapist. So it becomes really important for us to assess musculoskeletal screening of an athlete. And we will see this part in detail today. Once the player is passed out from this musculoskeletal screening, when the team physiotherapists feel that he should go ahead and give his fitness test, then a player goes to strength and conditioning coach who will assess the fitness and performance test of the player. So you can see the musculoskeletal screening, and the result of this screening is very important for an athlete to go ahead and attend all other sessions of training and skills. So we will discuss this MSK screening in detail today. Now, what we do in MSK screening is, step one is we take a brief history. We take all the details of past injuries and MSK issues. I would suggest that not only in last 2-3 years, even if player had some significant injury in before 8 to 10 years also, you have to take a note of that, because many times even if the injury has happened 10 years before, there is some biomechanical issues still happening in a player. So after taking a brief history of player, we start with an overall MSK screening program. And then according to the MSK screening program, if you find there is some issues, some major issues in an athlete, you can go for a selective assessment in detail regarding that region. For example, if in MSK screening, you found that a player had a groin pain while assessing a special test for the same, then you can go in detail about the groin assessment. But mostly step 2 is what we do for all the fit players. And we make a problem list and we make an injury prevention program according to this MSK screening. So we'll discuss step 2 today in detail. So these are the common tests that we do to a fit athlete. Now, if you can see, there are a lot of number of tests which are there. Okay, so if you can see, I have made 2 columns. The column on the right side, these are the very familiar tests that we use even in a clinical practice. So we are not going to discuss these in detail, but the tests which are there on the left column, these 7 tests hold a very important role to assess the fit athlete for predicting the risk factor and to check how much he has recovered from the previous injuries. So we are going to discuss these 7 tests in detail, and then we will just have an overview of this, which we usually practice in clinical practice. So these tests usually require very minimal equipment. When you are joining any team as a sports physiotherapist, as a team physiotherapist, it's not necessary that you will get all the equipments like dynamometer or digital goniometer. So now these tests that we are going to discuss, they don't need much of the equipments. You just need a marker, measure tape, universal goniometer, a ruler scale, box, and a sphygmomanometer. So let's see what are the common tests that are being used in an athlete to assess their injury risk. The first is first MTP extension test. This test assesses the first MTP dorsiflexion range of motion. Okay, so how the test is done? Using the universal finger goniometer or a normal goniometer. Stable arm is kept on axis of metatarsal, and movable arm is kept on proximal phalanx of great toe. And then passively we take the great toe to dorsiflexion and check the range. The normal range is 65 to 75 degree. And if this range is reduced, it will affect the running mechanics of a player. Now, why this great toe extension range of motion assessment is important in athlete? We all have heard about windlass mechanism, right? So this windlass mechanism will be will work in an optimal function when the great toe extension is optimal. So if the great toe extension reduces, the windlass mechanism will not be working in optimal function, which will be related, which will cause overload forces on plantar fascia and other foot muscles. And even there is one study which has shown that those who have a greater MTP extension range of motion, the sprint speed is higher in them, and those who have a lesser MTP extension range of motion, their sprint speed is lower compared to those. So it becomes very important to assess MTP extension range of motion in an athlete. And there is one more finding along with that. If you can see the callus formation in an athlete's great toe medial side, this is known as a pinch callus. If this is present in an athlete, there are high chances that they will have a reduced MTP extension range of motion. So in that case, you have to assess their range of motion, and accordingly you can decide. So similarly, one more test which is very important in assessing any lower body issues is knee to wall test. This is also known as dorsiflexion lunge test. It assesses the ankle range of motion, dorsiflexion range of motion. Okay, how the test is done? A subject will stand facing the wall. His testing leg will be forward over the tape which is planted on a ground, such that the second toe will be on the center of the tape, and center of the heel will be on the center of the tape. Now the rear foot, he can keep it in a tandem stance position as well. Otherwise, he can even change the position of rear foot. It will not affect the readings of the test. Now what player has to do, maintaining this position without raising the heel up, he need to touch the knee vertically to the wall. Now we start with this test at 10 centimeter. If player is able to touch comfortably to the wall, we take 1 centimeter, we take his foot 1 centimeter behind, and then player is again asked to touch the wall. So in this way, when player will be hardly able to touch the wall, and after that, if you increase the distance, he is not able to touch the wall. That is the final reading of the test. Now this test, if the reading is more than 12 centimeter or equal to 12 centimeter, it is normal. But if it is reduced, the evidence has shown that it is related to a lot of issues compared in relation to the lower body kinematics of the player. And what are these issues? Before that, we will just discuss what happens when the dorsiflexion range of motion is reduced. Now, as we already know about glenohumeral internal rotation deficit in shoulder, right? We know what is that. When the arc of shoulder rotation reduces, the forces on shoulder joint increases, right? And it will land up in players having some or other injuries. Similarly, if arc of range of motion of any joint reduces, it will be prone that the non-contractile tissues of that joint will be affected after that. They will be bearing more forces. Now, what happens if a dorsiflexion lunge test, if the player has reading of less than 12 centimeter, the arc of ankle movement will reduce. So usually what happens when a player is running or if player is jumping on the ground, 37 to 50% of the force is absorbed by ankle. Now, if the ankle range of motion reduces, what will happen? This force is transferred to their knee and hip, that is the proximal joints, which will land up in issues not only related to the ankle, but even to the knee and hip. So that's why the range of this, assessing the range of dorsiflexion is very important if you want to predict some risk factors which can cause injury in athlete. So what are the pathomechanics that happen if players? Definitely because knee to ankle range will reduce. It will end up in poor neuromuscular coordination, where player will, when he will do some activity, his foot will go in a pronation and tibia will go in internal rotation. There will be poor landing mechanics. Then even the study says that those who have a limited dorsiflexion range of motion, the dorsiflexor strength is also reduced. And along with that, as assessed and as validated by STAR expression balance test, the postural control of the player who has a less dorsiflexion strength is also reduced. And then they are more prone for injuries. And there are many research which have been shown that those who have motion prone for patellar tendinopathy. They are also prone for ACL injuries. They are also prone for IT band syndrome. So there are many injuries that can happen if the player's dorsiflexion range of motion is reduced. So how we use this test in clinically is, if the range of motion is more than 12 centimeter, we count them as a normal. There is the dorsiflexion range of motion is normal. But if it is less than 12 centimeter, in that case, if in both the foot it is less than 12 centimeter and there is no history of injury in athlete, it can be normal, provided if you assess the other biomechanical tests that we are going to discuss further. And if that tests are normal, then the minor decrease in the dorsiflexion length symmetrically will be normal. Now, if both sides, the range of motion is less than 12 with the history of injury, there will be some players which will come with the history that they have a repeated ankle sprain in both the ankles. So in that case, if the player is coming and the range is less than 12 centimeter, we count that as abnormal, and that might be a predisposing risk factor for re-injury. Symmetrically, if one side is less and other side is normal, but there is no history of ankle injury or any other lower limb injury, we can count that player as a predisposing risk for lower limb injury. And if the dorsiflexion lunge test is asymmetrical with the history of injury, then that player has a high risk of re-injuring the same structures. So this way dorsiflexion lunge test we use, and it is really very important test for any lower body injuries. So what we do if there is any lower body injuries in an athlete, we assess this test, even if the injury is related to hip or lower back. The second test is, third test is single leg squat. We all must be familiar with this test because it is extensively used even in a clinical practice. This test usually assesses the lower limb neuromuscular control. Okay, so how is this test done? A subject will stand with the hands on the waist, and he is asked to weight bear on one leg, that is testing leg. Then slowly he will go down on the same leg and trying to control the posture. Now, what we have to assess in this test is, we have to see how is the overall balance of a subject. Then we have to see how is the knee control, whether the knee is going in valgus or whether it is in straight. And along with that, we have to see how is this trunk and hip alignment while doing the single leg squat. And we have to see the overall movement quality. How is subject performing this test? So now if we check all these components, well, we can grade them as good, fair, and poor. So how we grade is, if all these components which we discussed are normal, like a player is able to do a single leg squat quite efficiently with a good quality and good stability, we grade it as good. Now, if any one of these components is present, like if a player's balance is impaired or if the knee control is impaired, any one component is impaired, we grade it as fair. And if more than one components are involved, where in case if two components are involved or three components are involved, we grade it as poor. So in this way, we use this test, and this test holds the importance in assessing the lower body kinematic chain. Okay. So now the evidence of this test says that this test is not related to any acute injuries. Till now, there is no evidence that if person's single leg squat performance is poor, they are prone for acute injury. But this test is related to many overuse injuries like IT band syndrome, patellar tendinopathy, PFPS, along with that a shin pain, that is medial steeple stress syndrome. And along with that, this test is also very useful when a player is recovering from ACL reconstruction. So even after, there are some studies which show that even after 6 months of rehabilitation, the player's single leg performance test remains poor, which will prone them for re-injury. So this test is used not only to predict the risk factors, it is also used to see the lower kinematic chain of a subject. And you can compare this test with ankle dorsiflexion test that we already discussed to see whether the readings are because of that or it is a genuine neuromuscular issue of the player. Now the next test is, the fourth one is groin squeeze test. I mean, this test we assess the adductor strength in athlete. Now, why we use this test is, groin pain is very common in almost all the running injuries, all the running sports like football, rugby, even in cricket, fast bowlers, we see they have a adductor issue on and off. So it becomes very important for us to see this in a normal athlete, what is the adductor strength in them. So how we assess this test is, this is assessed in 0 degree of hip flexion, 45 degree and 90 degree of hip flexion. But the optimal strength is being found in 45 degree of hip flexion. So we usually use 45 degree of hip flexion to assess the groin strength. If there is some abnormality, we can test the same in all the 3 angles. Now, how to do this test is, you need a sphygmomanometer and you have to inflate it to 10 mm Hg. So 10 mm Hg will be the basic pressure that will be present in a cuff or sphygmomanometer. You have to put the cup in between the knees of the subject, and subject will lie in a crook lying position with 90 degrees of hip flexion. So in this position, putting the cuff on in between the knee, then the subject is asked to press the cuff as maximal as he can, and he has to hold that position for 2 to 3 seconds. Now this test is done for the 3 trials, and while doing the test, while performance of the test, we need to check for 2 things. First is we need to see if there is any pain present while doing the test, and second is we need to see the strength, that how much a player is able to do the compression. Now the normal in this, as per the study, is the normal finding is if player is able to compress the cuff for more than 220 mm Hg, the groin strength is called as normal. Now he is able to, if he is not able to do anything like near to 220 also, they are more prone for groin injury. For example, if a player had even 210 mm Hg, there is some predisposing risk that he will have a groin injury, even acute or overuse. And if this reduce in the strength is associated with even the minimal pain also, so pain and reduced strength together will increase the chance of groin injury in a player. So while assessing this test, we take care of whether the player is feeling pain and how much strength he is able to do. So in this way, we check the groin strength of the player. This test is also known as adductor squeeze test, and it is very widely used in any groin issues as well, and even for the prevention of any groin injuries. Now the 5th one is single leg bridge test. This is also known as single leg glute hold. So this test usually assesses the glute endurance as well as it assesses the neuromuscular control of lumbopelvic region. And for these 2 findings, the test is validated. So it is validated to assess the neuromuscular control of lumbopelvic region, as well as it is validated to assess the glute endurance. How the test is done? The subject will lie flat on the floor, and he will bend both the knees to 90 degrees. And he will keep his arms crossed to the chest. Now in this position, in a double leg landing position, he will lift his hip off the floor and make a streamline line between the shoulder and knee. Now once he holds this position, he has to slowly lift one leg up, straight leg, which will be parallel to the thigh of other leg, and the testing leg will remain down, planting and holding the position. The player is asked to hold this position for as long as possible. Okay, and therapist has to observe if there is any pelvic deviation, if there is any reduce in the alignment of the shoulder and hip, or if a player is feeling any cramp or any stiffness in his hamstring or back. So if any of these things happen, player is given one warning. Even after that, if he is not able to hold this position, the test is terminated and the time is recorded. So there are gradings of this test. If the hold is less than 60 seconds, in that case, the player's glute endurance is level 1, which we count for an athlete as a poor endurance. If it is in between the 60 to 90 second, it is in level 2, and if it is more than 90 second, it is level 3. So we usually keep a player, we give them a target to keep it for 90 seconds. Anything less than that, we need to work on them. Otherwise, they are prone for some musculoskeletal issue related to their hip and knee. So this test is exclusively used for neuromuscular control, lumbopelvic region, and glute endurance. Now the 6th one is single leg hamstring bridge. Why we use this test is to assess the hamstring endurance. Why this hamstring endurance is important to assess? Because there are studies which shows that not only the hamstring strength which is responsible for any injury, hamstring endurance plays more important role if you want to correlate it with the hamstring injuries. And that's why this test is being counted as a core test in any running athlete. How we do the test is, again, player will lie flat on the floor with both the knees straight and both the legs straight. Then he will put a 1 centimeter height such that his knee angle is 20-degree flexion. And the other leg will be vertically upward, and it will bend from the knee. And then holding, the player will lift off his hip away from the floor, and he has to do the repetitions of this. Like he has to lift off the hip and go back, and lift off the hip and go back. In this test, he is not allowed to rest his hips again over the floor. So he need to do the repetitions of this movement, as many as possible. And the therapist will observe the quality of movement, like if he is able to finish whole, or if he is able to maintain the knee flexion range of motion, or if he is able to hold the arms over the chest, he is not opening up to take the support. And if player is doing so, therapist will give one warning. Even after warning, if he is not able to maintain the quality of movement, test is terminated. Now, what are the results? What are the grades of this test? If a subject is able to do less than 20 repetitions on one side, it is counted as a poor hamstring endurance. If he is able to do in between 20 to 30, it is average. And if it is able to do greater than 20, then it is known as a good hamstring endurance. Now, if player is not able to do 30, even if he is in an average grade, that is, if his hamstring endurance count is in between 20 to 30 counts, then he is prone for hamstring injuries. So in these cases, in whichever leg their count was less, that leg, when he is going to play the matches, there are more chances that he will have some hamstring injury in that leg. So that's why it becomes important to check the hamstring endurance, because we know hamstring injury is very common in any running sports. Now, the last one which we are going to discuss in detail is combined elevation test. Now, this test is not related to lower body directly, but it is related to the kinematic chain, which is useful for an athlete. So what this test assesses is, it assesses the thoracic and shoulder mobility of an athlete. Okay. So what is the importance of this test? Because while performing this test, you are not only assessing the thoracic extension range, shoulder terminal flexion range, but along with that, we are going to assess the scapular retractors hold and scapulus depressors hold also. So how is this test performed? As you can see in the first picture, the starting position of a player will lie down on the floor with the forehead touching the floor, and his hand will be vertically upwards, and one hand will be over the another hand. He has to keep his wrist, fingers, and all the metacarpus straight without any bend, and even his elbow should be straight. Now, holding this position, he has to just raise his arms up as much as possible, and he has to hold for 2 to 3 seconds. We have to measure from the base of metacarpal till the floor how much is the distance. Now, if player is able to cross the 30 centimeter, the range of thoracic and shoulder mobility is normal. Anything less than that, there is some impairment in shoulder or thoracic range of motion, or shoulder and thoracic strength, some muscle strength. So this test is mostly useful for overhead athletes like swimmers, volleyball, even a cricket. It is being used. So this test assesses the terminal mobility of thorax and shoulder. Now there are few studies which shows that those who have a reduced range of motion of combined elevation test, they are more prone for shoulder issues. Along with that, there are few studies which also shows that along with the increased load on an overhead athlete, like when athlete is on training for a longer period of time and the training is extensive, after that the combined elevation test score reduces. So this is something which we use regularly on even between the matches to check if the range of motion of this combined elevation is reduced or it is maintained. So these are the most important tests that we use, and which might not be we might not be using those in a regular clinical practice, but these are very important tests to use for an athlete. Other tests, there are other tests also that we use in regular musculoskeletal screening. We all are familiar with these tests: star excursion test and single leg balance test. They assesses the lower body postural control. In star excursion, we usually use only 3 directions as shown in the figure. It is posteromedial, posterolateral, and anterior. And if it is related to some injury or if the player is not able to do, then we go for all other directions. Along this, as a regular protocol, you also for limb active knee test to check the hip flexors and flexibility, hip impingement test to check if there is any pathology related to the hip joint. And we also see this forced ankle plantar flexion test, which will assess the posterior ankle impingement of the athlete. This forced ankle plantar flexion test is done in a prone lying position with the knee flexion to 90 degree. And the therapist will grasp the forefoot and heel and posterior part of the heel of the subject. And then we will do a quick plantar flexion and we'll ask the patient if he feels any pinch or any pain in the posterior part of the ankle. So this is also again very important test to do, because sometimes if the dorsiflexion lunge test score of an athlete is less, and if he is playing the matches, he might develop a posterior ankle impingement because ankle is working more in a plantar flexion range of motion. So that's why we use this test, just to see if he is developing any symptoms and they are in subclinical level. So if you can see the core elements with all these tests, we are assessing the main core elements of lower limb. We are assessing the flexibility. We are assessing the neuromuscular control of lower limb. We are also assessing the muscle endurances of the major muscles of posterior chain, that are hamstring and glutes. Along with that, we are also measuring the proprioception. So in this way, lower body screening is done, and we get very important risk factors which might make an athlete prone for some injuries. Along with that, we use this test for upper limb and trunk. These are very familiar tests. You must be knowing about GIRD, that is glenohumeral internal rotation deficit, where the internal rotation range of dominant shoulder will reduce and total arc of range of motion of shoulder will reduce. So this we assess. Along with that, we assess the strength of rotator cuff muscle, Hawkins Kennedy to see if there is any subclinical impingement, O'Brien to check the labral pathology, and MTCAN to see the rotator cuff integrity. And along with that, these are the other tests that we do. That is lumbar range of motion using measure tape, using the modified Schober's technique. And the thoracic range of motion, which is very important. This thoracic range of motion plays very important role when you are assessing a kinetic chain, because we have seen that unilateral thoracic range of motion reduction is present in shoulder pain patients. So thoracic range of motion we see with measure tape. Then we assess the slump test. We all know the slump test is done to check if there is any neural issue involved in the player. And this is again also important in athletes, because we have seen some cases where, because of the neural irritability, player was getting a hamstring pinch pain, which was misdiagnosed initially as a hamstring tendinopathy. But then we came to know that it is because of nerve issue. So mostly in batsmen, this slump test becomes very important to assess, because they have to spend a lot of time bending their back and batting in the field and as well as in the matches. Along with that, we use the prone knee flexion test, where player will lie prone. You all must be knowing about this test, where the player lies prone and he will actively flex one knee, and we have to assess the arch of lumbar lordosis, if it is increasing or change. Now this test will assess the rectus femoris flexibility, as well as it will assess the motor control of lumbar lordosis. We have seen this in the cases in the players who had a history of stress fractures in their lumbar region. They have an impaired motor control and they have an extension instability in lumbar lordosis, in lumbar region. So this test will help you to find if they have an extension pattern of instability present. Then we these planks and side planks are very common that we use to see the core endurance. So these are the total bunch of tests that we use in a fit athlete to see if there are any factors which are present which might increase his risk of injury. And along with that, with these tests, we also come to know that if he had any injury previously, whether he has completely recovered from that or not. So if you ask about validity and reliability of this test, almost all the tests have very good to excellent reliability. Only single X score test is the one which has moderate to good reliability. It is because we know that there are many subjective observations in that test. But if we take a video of single X squat and if we analyze the single X squat in video, then the reliability of single X squat also increases. So if the tests are reliable, then definitely it will be useful even for the validities, right? So all these tests are being validated in different studies, and they have shown that these all tests and findings of these all tests will help you to prevent the injury or to check the progression in any conditions. So we use this test extensively in an athlete just to see what is his progression and what are his normal optimal functions going on. So you must be thinking there are too many tests. But if you keep all the platforms ready, like if you keep a dorsiflexion lunge test, if you keep the star excursion test, and if you keep all other platforms ready, it takes only 70 to 75 minutes to assess a fit athlete with all these tests. And even if the athlete is sometimes, you're retesting them and athlete is familiar with the test where he don't need more of the practice trials. In that case, even in a lesser time, you can finish all these tests. Now, the most important thing is how to make this all tests convenient to do, and it should be convenient for therapists, it should be convenient for athletes to do this test. So we use this sequence to do all these tests. We initially finish all the tests in standing position. Okay, so all the tests that require an athlete to stand and do, we finish that first. Then we go for sitting position. Then we go the tests that are to be done in supine position, and sideline, and then prone. And the most important thing is all the endurance tests has to be done at last, because if these tests are done, we are testing the muscles till their fatigue threshold in this test, right? So if the muscle is fatigued, it might affect the findings of other tests. So we keep endurance tests, that is single leg glute bridge, hamstring planks, and side planks at last after finishing all other tests. So in this way, if we do the musculoskeletal screening of the player, we are not only getting an extensive findings of major musculoskeletal issue in the player, but also we will complete all these tests in a minimal time, which will be helpful for us when we are working working as a team physiotherapist, where there are many athletes to be assessed. So what you will get when you are doing an MSK screening, you will get the answers for these questions. How optimal is the player's body to perform required physical activity? You will get an answer for this with the results of MSK screening. How much has he recovered from his previous injury? You will get answer for this also. And is there any risk factor present in an athlete? You will get answer to this also. So this MSK screening becomes very important to assess all these things and to give answer to all these things. Now I will just show you one case where we have used the single leg squat as a finding, and we have got some good results after that. Now you can see this, he is a right-arm fast bowler of our team, and we have assessed the single leg squat in 2018. I will just play the video again from beginning. You can see, and you just analyze the balance, overall quality, knee control, and trunk and hip of the player in this. If you can see, he's not able to maintain the balance. His knee is going in valgus, and even his bending is struck to one side. I will again play the video. So while we were assessing this thing, we got that he has a poor neuromuscular control of the limb. Along with that, the player complained that he was feeling a shin pain regularly. So this player had a shin pain for almost 2 seasons continuously. Along with that, whenever he was doing a training, like whenever he was doing a deep squats with the weight and barbell, he was feeling pain in his shin. So we assessed him for this, and then we worked on his gluteus medius part, because we found that his gluteus medius was weak. So we worked on his gluteus medius, and then we worked on his running technique along with this. And his shin pain, not only his shin pain was reduced, even his run up in the bowling was improved. He was initially crossing the legs while running for the bowling, but his crossing the leg also reduces with just by the controlling this knee valgus in rehabilitation. And I will show you how he has improved in after 3 months. So this was his test after 3 months. You can see his range has increased. There is more improved speed, and along with that, his knee control is better. It is not optimal, but it is still better than before. So in this way, we assess and we find out some factors which will make their not only performance improve, but they will also reduce the issue of the lower body. So we are open for the question round now.
Thank you so much, Neeraj, for that wonderful session.
Thank you, sir.
Now the session is open for questions. I saw some question posed by Manova.
Yep.
Yeah, so with respect to single leg hamstring bridge test, her question is whether the height of the table to be considered.
Okay, so the height of the table is usually, we need to consider that when you are using this test for the research. But when you are using for the clinical practice, the only thing that you have to keep in mind that the height should remain constant all the time. If you're keeping the lesser height, you keep the same height even for the assessment of the same player again when you are assessing them. So the constant height is more important than the 60 centimeter. And one more thing is the 20-degree knee flexion should be maintained. Because if he is extending the knee, he is going to use the other muscle. If he is flexing the knee, he will again change and he will try to modify the performance of his. So 20-degree knee flexion is important and any constant height is important.
Yeah, since the session got over much ahead of time, so we have got ample time for discussion. So participants can ask questions. Instead of typing the question, you can just directly ask a question. Unmute yourself, introduce yourself, and then ask question, please.
Good afternoon. Good morning, sir. My name is Umang.
Good morning.
Sir, my question is like in the groin squeeze test, are the normative value the same for males and females, or it's different? Like you said, it should be more than 220 millimeters of mercury.
Yeah, so it's like for females, they've shown that from 210 to 220 should be normal, because in some studies they've shown that they are almost near to 220. Even the female's normative value is equal to 220. But we have seen that 210 is what we have seen in almost all the female athletes which were participating in the team. So we count 210 as a normal for a female in Indian scenario. But there are no studies there are no normative values present for Indian athletes.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
So there is a similar question from Zeel asking about gender differences about the grades of this test.
The same one? Which one?
Very similar, gender differences.
Yeah, so for hamstring bridge, again, it is being, hamstring bridge test is done in so many athletes, they were almost both male and female. The average that they found was this. So even for hamstring bridge for female also, we use the same readings. Even for glute bridge also, we use same reading because these are the important part they have to maintain. So glute endurance, if they are holding the glute endurance, they are holding the glute endurance by holding their body, right? So this much glute endurance is important for female. So same glute endurance is also important for male. So we don't have any different gradings for female and male for hamstring and glute.
Yes, Manasi.
Good morning, sir.
Yeah, good morning.
Hello.
Yes. Please proceed.
Sir, I wanted to ask how to check the power output, like in case like plyometric testing for in case of throwing and bowling, and especially in bowlers, like with especially this is concerned with to return to sports, like when we rehab, the range of motion is fine, strength is fine, then we have to do functional plyometric testing for upper limb. So for
Okay.
that, how do we grade and how do we test for the upper extremity?
Okay, so if you are assessing a athlete for return to play, these tests won't be directly useful for that. Okay, these are just a regular screening test. So if you want someone to see how much powerful is his throw after the rehabilitation, you have a different sets of tests. A few of the tests I will discuss with you right now. One is closed kinematic chain upper extremity test. There, it is a closed kinematic chain. Like player will stand, will lie in a push-up position, and he has to He has to repeatedly do the arm action with a specific distance. So in that way, we will see how much is the shoulder endurance. Along with that, we have a single leg shot put test where player will sit in a crook line position on the floor. He will hold the medicine ball of 3 lbs in his hand. And he will, without using his trunk, he has to throw the ball and you have to measure the distance. So for that, the normative values are available. You can compare the distance with the normative value. Along with that, we also have one set of tests which is known as concentric test, concentric aseptic test, and stretch reflex test. There, what we do, the player will lie flat on the bench in a crook-like position. With both the hands, he will hold the medicine ball of 3 lbs, and then he has to throw the medicine ball as fast as possible. So it measures the distance. You have to measure the distance of 3 trials, and then you have to compare with the normative value. Normative value of that is also available. Along with that, we also use one more test of assessing the upper extremity control. It is similar to Y balance test. We know Y balance is similar to SABT, right? So that same test we use, in which the testing arm is kept on the center, and player has to reach to different directions with the non-testing arm. And then you have to measure the distance and you have to compare it with the normative values. Normative value of that is also available. So these are the tests that we use if is there any upper extremity injury and if the player is recovering from that.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Hello.
Yeah, any other questions?
Yes, someone wants to ask question.
Good morning, sir. I'm Komal here.
Hello, good morning.
So if we, hello.
Yeah,
Yes,
good morning.
proceed.
So if we have to evaluate an athlete prior injury assessment, can we use the same set of tests?
Can you repeat your question? I could not hear.
If we have to do a pre-assessment injury prevention for an athlete, then can we use the same set of tests?
Yes, these are the tests which we have designed for pre-season injury prevention screening itself. So if you will assess all these tests, you will come to know about all the major parts of the athletes and if they are in a normal range or not.
Good morning, sir. Sir.
Yeah, good morning.
Hello.
Yeah, please.
Yes, good morning. You are audible.
Yes, sir. Just I wanted to again ask one question related to the low back, sir, the crunch factor, which they say, especially in bowlers, sir. So in that case, are there any injury prevention strategies to apart from the technique modification to reduce the load, like especially the stress on lumbar elements and any conditioning or physiotherapeutic intervention which is there to address the low back pain in bowlers? Yes, sir.
Yeah, so thank you. It's a very good question that you asked. I would say you cannot keep a constant strategy or constant conditioning for everyone, because those who have a low back injury, even in fast bowlers, the body type is different. Even those who have a stiffer body type, they will also land up in back injuries, and those who are flexible, they will also land up in back injury. So in that cases also, you need to assess their thoracic mobility. You need to assess their back. You need to see their back control in different exercises. You need to see how is their lumbopelvic control. Okay, and along with that, you have to see what the major muscles, strength and endurance in lower body. So then you will decide whether this player needs this type of conditioning or whether this player needs that type of conditioning. For example, for the stiffer players, for those who have flexibility issues, many of the bowlers will have flexibility issues. Now you assess them for a pre-season screening. You know that their Thomas test is positive. They have a hip flexor tightness. They have a quadricep tightness. Now this hip flexor is assessed is attached to the lower lumbar area, right? You know the lumbar area is origin of the hip flexor. So if this muscle is tight, whenever they are running, whenever they are bowling, it is going to pull the spine in lumbar lordosis. Because of that, they will have some other another compression issues pertaining to this thing in different joints. So in that case, you need to put him in a mobility program, and then he can proceed for a strength and conditioning session. Because if his mobility is not good, if he is doing strength and conditioning program, he is bound to do all the tests with the abnormal lumbar position. And there are some other types of athletes also where flexibility is not an issue. So in that case, you will find that their strength in their lower body or if their lumbopelvic control is not good. So in that way, you can talk with a trainer, with a strength and conditioning coach of your team, and then you can plan that his hamstring and glute is weak. So your trainer will plan the different types of power exercises and different type of strength exercises, which will focus on his abs, glutes, and hamstring as a chain. So in that way, we train the athletes with the different issues, because not a single program can be useful for everyone.
Okay, sir. Yes. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, there is a question from Manava. So she is asking for a textbook reference. Is there a textbook reference?
Yeah, no. So as I told you initially, these all are evidence-based. If you want, I have shared my email ID. I will send you the relevant articles, whichever is required. So all of these tests are like we have made it as per the requirement of an athlete. We have modified it. We continuously modify it also. There is no textbook reference for it, but there are a lot of articles you will get. These all are very common tests. So if you will search for them, you will get it. Even if you want, I can give you some relevant articles regarding the reliability, validity, and along with that, if they have some association with injury, that articles also I have, so I can share it with you. I have shared my email address. If you can see here, if someone needs some articles on this, they can mail it to me. I will send it to them.
I request Neeraj, if you can just post your presentation material in the chat room.
Okay.
Yeah, so you can just post your presentation material. You can stop sharing your screen.
Okay. Okay, sir.
You can stop. Yeah, you can stop sharing your screen and you can post the presentation material. So, do any other participants have any questions? So, I think Dr. Ranganath is available online. Any comments, reviews, feedback? Dr. Ranganath?
Good morning, sir.
Joined a bit late. Hello, am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
Yeah. So maybe towards the last 10 minutes, probably. What I could see is a nice compilation the last 10 minutes where you gave an excellent example of single leg squat where we use for all the athletes before they get back to the normalcy. That was good. And similarly, I'm sure that you would have demonstrated rest of the good ways of evaluation as well, which I missed. But overall, it was nice to see you and excellent presentation, Neeraj.
Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah, I think there are one other question from Vikas. Which aerobic test we can use apart from 6-minute walk test?
6-minute walk test is usually not used in sports. We usually use 1 mile test. 1 mile run test is a good aerobic test. Along with that, if you want to assess not only aerobic as well as anaerobic capacity of an athlete, there is one test with an excellent reliability. You all must have heard the name of it, yo-yo test, that we use it.
Thank you, Neeraj. It was really a wonderful presentation, excellent presentation. So being a non-specialty person, I was really enjoying your presentation. And the presentation was simple, yet it is full of content, material knowledge you shared with us. So you provided us with the battery of tests, what is essential core test that is required to assess an athlete. and the presentation was excellent. So you had an introduction, you have signpost to your what all test you are going to describe. So you had done that and you have described it and you have provided the evidence. So what I liked most is in each slide, the text was very minimal and the graphic material was very well used, and all relevant evidences you have given in each slide. And the test stations were as per the poster, the sequence in which it should be done: standing, sitting, lying, at last endurance. So it really made sense. So what should be the sequence in which the athlete to be tested? So it was an excellent presentation. Being a non-specialty person, I really enjoyed your presentation, and I have drawn some knowledge about assessing an athlete, even if I'm not going to use it. So it was an excellent presentation. So on behalf of the Department of Physiotherapy, my faculty colleagues, as well as the alumni, so spread far and wide. So I take immense pleasure in thanking you for accepting our invitation to be the resource faculty for this session on a Sunday, so which many people wanted to reserve for their personal leisure time. So thank you so much, Neeraj, for joining us and sharing your knowledge and experience with us. So
Sir, I've shared the file of that presentation also.
Yes, please share, and you can share your comments also, your thoughts.
Yes, sir. Yes, sure. Thank you, sir. Shall we stop the session or we need to continue?
Okay, so no, you can just share.
I already shared. Yes, sir. I've already shared the file.
Okay, but I couldn't. Yes. Fine.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Any final thoughts before concluding?
No, I hope that it was useful for especially for all the ortho PGs of Manipal and other clinical therapists, those who are working with athletes. And I hope that it will help them to assess the athlete in a better way.
Okay, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.